Farm Week is a production of the Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Today on Farm Week, we'll have speculation from members of Congress on how the outcome of the election will affect work on the new Farm Bill.
The Mississippi State University Extension Service honored its best and brightest this week in Starkville.
1,500 people attended the recent Mississippi Rice Tasting Luncheon held in Cleveland.
In Southern Gardening, Gary Bachman will show us some ways for our landscapes to transition between the seasons and still remain attractive.
In the markets, corn and bean prices move higher on news of planting delays in South America. And some positive factors emerge for a hog market dealing with large supply.
In the feature segment, the new Mississippi Outstanding Logger of the Year. Tim Mahan is known for respecting the land he works on. Unlike most logging company owners, he worked his way into the business.
I don't want them talking about the clutter that's left. I hear them talking about some logging jobs that just leaves buckets and garbage, and that's one of my pet peeves is the garbage. I don't want it all over the job.
Good day, everyone. I'm Leighton Spann.
And I'm Artis Ford. Welcome to Farm Week.
The next time you watch Farm Week, we will all know the outcome of Tuesday's election.
Well, Leighton, this is a federal election, so it could mean changes in the makeup of the House and Senate Agriculture Committees in the Congress. If the Republicans win a majority in the U.S. Senate, it would mean a new Senate Ag Committee chairman. The same would be true if the Democrats gained a majority in the U.S. House. But what about the new Farm Bill, which couldn't be completed before the congressional recess? Well, Iowa's Republican Senator Charles Grassley says there are two scenarios depending on whether President Obama or Mitt Romney wins. Grassley says if Mr. Obama is elected, that the coming deadline on federal budget sequestration and taxes would dominate the lame duck session after the election. In this case, Grassley says the 2008 Farm Bill will probably be extended another 5 months and then worked on in the late spring. Grassley says if Romney is elected, budgetary matters would be delayed for about 6 months as the Romney administration settles in. This, Grassley said, might allow enough time in the lame duck session to pass a new Farm Bill. Meanwhile, U.S. House Majority Leader Republican Eric Cantor of Virginia says that the House will vote on the stalled Farm Bill in the lame duck session. Cantor says he delayed action before the election recess because he didn't have the votes to pass it. The Senate has already passed its new version of the Farm Bill. Senate Ag Committee Chairman Democrat Debbie Stabenow of Michigan says she was pleased to hear about Cantor's commitment to work on the new Farm Bill right after the election.
Extension agents and specialists gathered in Starkville Monday and Tuesday for their annual conference. The first ever Mark E. Keenum Outstanding Extension Faculty Award, sponsored by Southern Ag Credit, was presented by Gary Blair to 25-year employee Ken Hood is an extension professor in agricultural economics and is credited with bringing Market Maker, an online marketing tool, to the state of Mississippi.
The land grant system, and you look up here, learning, research, and service. That service, you touch the lives of the people of Mississippi every day. Thank you for what you do.
The annual Outstanding Extension Agent Award went to Lance Newman of Lafayette County, an area livestock agent. During the General Assembly on Tuesday, Extension Director Gary Jackson emphasized the continuing importance of having an extension office in each county of the state.
Wherever you go, Mississippians, leaders in Mississippi, they are pro-county extension office. So we have good extension offices. We want to strengthen them. We want to strengthen the programming coming of that. We want to put more operating into that. So that all needs to come, but it'll have to come in phases due to our current situation.
Dr. Jackson says the Extension Service has added 32 new county and area agents in the last year.
Well, as we enter November, let's check on the Mississippi Weekly Crop Report from the Mississippi Ag Statistics Service in Jackson. The corn and rice harvests are finished. Soybeans are almost gathered. Cotton is not far behind. This does reflect conditions as of Sunday. As we look at topsoil moisture in the state right now, we see that it's surplus in 8% of the state, adequate in 89%. Mississippi soybeans, crops practically finished, probably is by this date, 98% as of Sunday, and that is ahead of the 5-year average. Mississippi cotton getting close as well, 80% of the crop harvested as of Sunday, probably through in 2 weeks at the outside. As we look at Mississippi rice, as I said, crop there is harvested 100%, that is ahead of the 5-year average. Mississippi peanuts, 59%, or 74% of the crop dug, ahead of the average, but harvest still running behind 59% as of Sunday. In terms of condition, 60% of the crop is in fair shape, 21% in good condition. Mississippi sweet potatoes, we saw the pace pick up there, 85% of the crop harvested as of Sunday. Mississippi wheat, 29% of the crop planted, which is about on the 5-year average. Emergence is also about on the 5-year average at 14%.
Our next story takes us back into September, which is National Rice Month. If you like to eat rice, be sure to be in Cleveland, Mississippi for lunch on the 3rd Friday of September. That is the date of the annual Mississippi Rice Luncheon. It's not unusual to find 300 different rice dishes on the menu and 1,500 people enjoying them. Delta Rice Promotions is made up of individuals and groups which join together to honor the economic contributions of the Mississippi rice industry. Farmweek's Amy Taylor reports.
It's only when you come to the annual rice tasting luncheon that you actually see such a wide variety of ways rice can be cooked. Mississippi State University Extension Service Coahoma County Director Don Respis talks about how the luncheon got started.
Delta Rice Promotions Group is made up of people from all over the Delta that have an interest in growing rice and also making folks aware of how important rice is to the Delta. And Bolivar County produces more rice than any county in the Delta and has for years. We're just blessed with, flat ground and a good water supply, and we can raise, good crops of rice each year. And I guess that's why it's centered in Cleveland.
Additionally, Respis says Delta State University generously lends the Walter Sillers Coliseum for the luncheon each year. Bolivar County Extension Director Laura Jacalia talks about the versatility of the event and new ways agricultural commodities are being promoted.
It's fun to be in line and to see the different dishes and to hear the person behind you or in front of you talk about, this special dish and what it consists of, because there's so many different ingredients that you see. Even though it's rice, there's so many other things you can put with it to make it seem so different. We started making these t-shirts, Eat Rice, Wear Cotton, and we're selling them in local stores, and we even actually have some at the Cotton Museum in Memphis and other outlets around in the Delta. And so we wanted to try to incorporate another commodity, and we're still trying to figure out ways that we can incorporate soybeans or corn or whatnot.
In addition, local businesses, DSU Nursing School, various agricultural services, and Bolivar County Medical Center made a showing at the annual Rice Tasting Luncheon. From Cleveland, Mississippi, I'm Amy Taylor reporting.
Do you think your landscape has little to offer as we head into winter? In this week's Southern Gardening segment, Extension Horticulturist Dr. Gary Bogman will show us how to help our landscapes change with the season and still maintain our interest.
Today I'm at the home of Nina and Charles Rivenberg. Their backyard is an attractive example of the landscape transitioning into winter. All throughout the garden there are sculptures that help to add interesting character. This large ceramic frog is sitting in a pond of liriope with the red and green oxalis in the foreground. The yellow and black pansies add winter color. Though the weather is getting cooler, the garden still has a tropical feel. Elephant ear and green autumn fern have a warm feeling. The gold dust acuba and the large leaves of deeply lobed Japanese fatsia seem to be making this rooster crow. There are splashes of color available, like this planting of late-season Betty Boop floribunda rose. And this garden angel watches over the back trail of late-season hosta, ajuga, coral begonia, and mondo grass. Leslie Ann's Sasanqua camellia provides good fall and winter color. The pink double flowers shine against an evergreen background. There are lots of textural contrasts. The dried flowers of Mississippi medallion winter, limelight hydrangea, and the foliage and red berries of nandina add interest. This purple-leafed loropetalum adds color in the cool season. The feathery dark pink flowers are a welcome sight. Remember, the cool season doesn't mean no color or interest in your landscape. I'm Gary Bachman for Southern Gardening.
Gary says don't set out your annual transition plants too late because they will not get a chance to acclimate to your landscape before it gets too cold. In the feature segment today, the new Mississippi Forestry Association Outstanding Logger of the Year. Tim Mahan and his wife didn't grow up in the logging business, but they still managed to get a start. Time now for the markets with Leighton. And Leighton, you say the analysts say there's a long-term downward trend for cotton.
Yes, and recent bearish numbers from the USDA certainly aren't helping matters. In the markets this week, big supplies continue to hinder cotton. A weaker dollar as October closes helps corn and soybean prices, and recent cheaper meal benefits hog and other livestock producers. As we look back at October, the past 3 weeks have been extremely volatile for cotton, according to analyst Sharon Johnson. And the bottom line here in the first weekend of November is that the cotton market is stuck. Analyst Naomi Bloom is very pessimistic, in fact, about its future.
It's trapped in this range where 77.5 is resistance and 70 is support, and it doesn't have a reason to get out of that range. The euphoria last week was about potential quality concerns. With our U.S. crop, there was something with the coarse fibers, and it might affect spinning, and things could break during that process. But in the reality, we have, as a global supply, 270 days worth of product, which is the most ever. So we're not going to see cotton rally. And in fact, even if they cut production next year in terms of acreage, if we go from 12.2 million acres down to 10 million acres, and even if we have good yields this year, it's not going to do a whole lot as far as affecting the ending stocks. So cotton is stuck.
A couple of factors are said to be at play in the positive market move for corn and soybeans late in the week. One, a weakening dollar, and two, disruptions in South American planting make U.S. grain more competitive on the global price stage. Extension economist John Michael Riley discussed corn and beans with me on Wednesday of this week. Well, for a change, John Michael, we have a weaker dollar at play as we record here.
We do, and that is providing a little bit of upward movement in terms of prices for most of our ag commodities. In terms of corn and beans, it is helping out, but it's helping out at a time when prices have been suppressed over the past number of weeks due to the fact that we've had a strengthening dollar for the most part. There's been times of weakness, but largely a strengthening dollar, which is never good for exports. It makes our goods more expensive to our friends overseas, and that's played into, along with a weaker global economy, and for the most part, most of our ag commodities, but more specifically soybeans and corn, have really suffered as a result of this. We've seen lowering expectations in terms of exports and the hope for exports through the future.
But corn has suffered more than beans as far as where the prices have been.
Exactly. Year to date, corn exports are down roughly 50% from where we were at a year ago. So really a lot of pressure on corn prices as a result of the strengthening dollar over the past couple of weeks and the weak global economy.
You would expect that pressure on corn to continue as we get into November?
As we get into, granted, we're seeing a little bit of weakness in the dollar, which helps, and maybe some buying activity going to take place, but for the most part, unless there's a drastic change in these two factors, it shouldn't really have a huge impact.
All right, now on the soybean side, meal prices have kind of helped support things here.
That's correct. We have seen some upward movement in meal prices, which has worked its way back up the chain and is helping out soybean prices. The cattle industry, cattle poultry industry is huge users of soybean meal, and the tightening supplies across many of these industries is obviously lower demand, total demand, but then there's this higher, as we see higher prices filter in on those commodities, it's brought this expectation that there is going to be some expansion across these various industries and thus more demand for soybean meal here just recently.
And briefly, there is talk South America may be having some trouble with its crop.
That's right. There was a beforehand expectation that they're going to bump up their acres for corn and soybeans, but here just over the past couple of days we have seen some concerns coming across the wire in terms of weather.
Our trivia quiz this week focuses on what used to be an important crop on the Gulf Coast, tung nuts, from which tung oil was produced. Here's the question: what county used to be the tung nut capital of the world? Is the answer George or Stone or Marion or Pearl River? I'll tell you which one is correct in a few more minutes.
We're going to pause for a short break on Farm Week. Coming up, we'll look at the calendar and the second part of the markets. Leighton Spann reports cheaper soy meal is good news for hog producers, while China is buying less U.S. logs. In the feature segment today, Tim Mahan, the 2012 Outstanding Logger of the Year in Mississippi. Mahan is both a logger and an environmentalist.
Mississippi 4-H celebrates a rich history of youth development through creative hands-on experiences. Programs emphasize leadership, technology, science, and agriculture.
But it's a lot more than that. Making the best better.
Before we get back to the markets, let's look at the Farm Week calendar. The 2012 Delta Crop Summit will be held Tuesday, November 13th at the MSU Delta Research and Extension Center at Stoneville. Runs from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Participants will be updated on water issues, new weed technology, and handling glyphosate-resistant weeds. Crop outlook and crop management, including peanuts, will be on the agenda. There's no registration fee and lunch is included. Continuing education credits are available for crop consultants. If you're interested in starting or managing a natural resource enterprise, attend the workshop on Tuesday, November 13th. It's located at Quail Hollow Ranch, Highway 11 South Purvis. Information will be presented on agritourism, fee hunting, fee fishing, and similar businesses. Controlling wild hogs and planting longleaf pines will also be covered. The registration fee is $25 and that includes lunch. Go to our Farm Week website at farmweek.msucares.com for information on these and other events. Now check out this week's Farm Week Snapshot.
A temporary decline in meal prices was welcome news for Mississippi's #1 ag commodity, chicken. But of course, this was a good development for the hog industry in the United States overall as well. Analyst Mark Gold says this kind of news, even if only temporary, is always positive for the livestock sector.
You know, you've got to watch these meal prices. Meal prices have come down. Technically, again, there's another chart that couldn't look worse. That gives me hope that, you know, maybe guys are holding off on this liquidation as these meal prices have come down, as the corn prices have come down. So I believe that, you know, we've got some positives in this hog market. The spreads kind of bother me. We've got some of the nearbys at pretty good discounts in here. I'm not sure, you know, that would be normally indicative of liquidation, but we haven't seen it. So maybe some of the, you know, October, December hogs are maybe a little cheap relative to the back months. But overall, I think the hog producer has to watch these meal prices. If we can continue to keep meal under $500 a ton, I think we've got a chance of pushing it even lower. That'll be healthy for the hog market. And I think it'll encourage guys, whether it's poultry, whether it's hogs, that, you know, there's still some money to be made certainly in the livestock or the poultry arena.
We end the markets in forestry products, where exports of U.S. softwood logs and lumber to China are way off. Wood Resources Quarterly says, in fact, this business is down as much as 41% compared to the same period in 2011. Canada and Russia are the two dominant suppliers of softwood lumber to China. The United States, Chile, and New Zealand pick up the remainder of the business. Now quickly looking at our trivia answer before we turn to the new feature story this week. Well, D is the answer that you want. Pearl River County used to be the tung oil capital.
Our feature story today is about Tim Mahan of Golden, Mississippi, the new Mississippi Forestry Association Outstanding Logger of the Year. Most loggers get into the business because their father or an uncle was already involved. Mahan's story is different. He comes from a non-logging family. Mahan did work in logging for a while, quit, and ended up returning to logging, this time as an owner.
Yeah, I don't want them talking about the clutter that's left. I hear them talking about some logging jobs that just leaves buckets and garbage, and that's one of my pet peeves is the garbage. I don't want it all over the job.
Tim and Lisa Mahan of Golden did not grow up in the logging business. Both, however, had worked in it prior to deciding to start their own logging company in 2005. At the time, Mahan was a long-haul truck driver. A desire to get off the road and work locally prompted Mahan to call Harold Russell, his previous logging employer. Mahan had managed a thinning crew for Russell. Russell said that he was downsizing his operation. To Mahan's surprise, Russell offered to let him take over a logging crew and its equipment, paying for it as Mahan harvested.
I was in disbelief, and then I thought, well, you know, I knew how hard Tim worked, and I knew, you know, he ran it before for Mr. Russell, and I knew we could do it.
That was 7.5 years ago. The Mahans run a 4-man woods crew with 2 over-the-road truck drivers. All the Southern Forestry crew is CPR trained. The only lost time accident occurred when a substitute filled in one day.
Almost all of them have been here from the beginning that work in the woods. The truck drivers, probably 3 to 4 years on them.
Forestry consultant Don Thompson nominated Mahan for Mississippi's Outstanding Logger of the Year because of Mahan's integrity. Thompson said Mahan places his loading decks in roads so they will cause as little damage as possible during the logging and after he leaves.
They're going to leave the job in good shape, and I think that's what most of our erosion in forestry, a lot of it's coming from our skid trails and roads, and when Tim gets through, he brushes those roads up so they don't wash away, and that really helps a whole lot for erosion and also helps just make the forest more sustainable.
Mahan does most of his cutting for F&W Forestry Services, which manages the timberland formerly held by Packaging Corporation of America. F&W logging supervisor Jason Potts also nominated Mahan for the award. Potts said Mahan and his crew follow the tenets of the Sustainable Forestry Initiative and best management practices. Potts said Mahan's crew recently made a perfect score on a BMP audit, the first 100% Potts has given.
And he cares about what he's doing out here. And as all his crew members do too. That's kind of unusual. Most, you know, on some log jobs, some people don't care at all. You know, they just want to draw a paycheck. But all his people, they care about what they do.
Potts also compliments Mahan on the appearance of his trucks on the highway.
Got nice trucks, good-looking trucks. He keeps them washed on, nice trailers. He'll pull the trailers in and keep them washed. You know, public opinion, to me, going up and down the road, you know, means something.
Efficiency is one reason Mahan's over-the-road trucks look good. They never enter the woods. Pull-out or set-out trucks take the trailers in and out of the woods to a staging area. The over-the-road trucks drop off empty trailers and pick up loaded ones.
The road trucks just can come and go without the hindrance of coming in, and if it takes 2 trucks to haul what we're hauling now and us setting them out, it's going to take at least 3 or 4 trucks to come in here and load because of the time that it takes to do it. And if you pay them by the load, they're not going to get paid as much at the end of the week because they're not going to get as many loads sitting in here waiting to load.
Thompson says Mahan likes to get topographic maps of the areas he logs. These maps show elevation changes, letting Mahan place the woods roads where they will cause the least erosion.
I like to know the layout of the land, and I like to plan my tracks. I like to plan my loading places, and I like, if we have to build a new road that there's not an existing road and we have to build one, I want to build that road at the best area that I can.
Mahan gives credit to his crew for his success.
They know what I expect, and I do expect a lot out of them at times, because it's important to me to be a good steward of the land. It's important to me to be safe, and sometimes it takes time to do that.
Mahan's wife, Lisa, is the company's bookkeeper, but she can run a knuckle boom loader if needed. Lisa and Tim have a daughter, Brianna. They are active members of the Walker Missionary Baptist Church.
I don't know, it gets in your blood, the logging. You either love it or hate it.
Lisa Mahan says they have to be willing to work hard and plan, but it is possible for young people to start a logging business.
to younger people that want to do this. There is a need for future loggers.
So I thought it was really unique that Tim had the opportunity to get in the logging business without having a generation of loggers behind him. And that tends to show young people coming up that there's a place for them if they're willing to get out there and do the work.
If you're interested in more information on Tim Mahan, you can watch this story again on our website, Facebook page, or YouTube page. We'll have contact information for him as well. Our website, farmweek.msucares.com. And once again, we congratulate the Mahans and their crew. Well, we are at the end of Farm Week for this week. On our next show, meet two young women who represent agriculture and rodeo sports in Mississippi.
Samantha Golden of Meridian is Miss Rodeo Mississippi, and Paige Nicholson of Starkville is Miss Dixie National. They make many appearances on behalf of Mississippi's #1 industry, agriculture.
In Southern Gardening next week, try the Matrix Pansy for color that can brighten up your winter. For the rest of the Farm Week crew, I'm Artis Ford.
And I'm Leighton Spann. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.